So how many of you, this is your first time here at Refresh? Raise your hand. Wow, this is amazing. Like every month for the last 6 months, it's been like 50% or more new people. So that means either half of you don't ever come back, or the new people seem to be able to get tickets faster than the old, slow people. So welcome. Thank you guys for coming. So Refresh Miami, since a lot of you guys are new, has been going on for 8 years. I think we're at 110th event or something like that. I don't know. And there's about 8,500 people now in Refresh. So congratulations to all you guys for bringing your friends and helping grow the South Florida tech community. We couldn't do it without people like you. So I suggest for next month, invite your friends and see if we can grow it even bigger. But anyway, so our purpose here at Refresh is to foster the growth of South Florida's tech and entrepreneurial communities. And so for those of you who haven't been here before, every month we bring together tech and entrepreneurship at the intersection of the two, whether it's in tech and food or fashion or tourism or whatever. And so tonight's event is about, it's part of our sort of summer startup series. And tonight's going to be all about how to bring your idea to life. So how many of you have had an idea for a startup that you've been on the fence about, been thinking about for years, but haven't launched? Let's see a round of, all right, so that's a good third of you. So how many of you have launched something and wish you had known more before you had launched? That should be the same third, the other 2/3, right? Because I know if I didn't have this in my hand, I'd be raising my hand right now. I've been through the whole build stuff, think, oh, this is going to be awesome, and then no one shows up. It's not Field of Dreams. Unfortunately, Kevin Costner lied to us all. So anyway, so tonight's event is part of our summer startup series. Last month we had how to fund your startup, and we had a bunch of entrepreneurs and investors talking about how to get money in South Florida. How many of you were here last month? Awesome. Well, the half that did not raise your hand, this is your first event. So next month, for those of you who, I hope all of you come back next month, we're going to have a how to launch your startup. So the theory is, you have this idea, you figured out how to get money for it, tonight you're figuring out how to prototype and build your first version, your MVP, and learn lean methodologies and all that. Next month you figure out how do successful people launch their startups and get press and get to market and get sales. Because what's the point of having a business if you're not making money from it, right? So, and then at the end of the summer, we're going to have a demo night. So for those of you who are interested in demoing the startups you've been working on, we have a forum on the website. We'll put up a link on the homepage so you can submit, and we'll be picking between 8 and 10 companies to come up and have a 3 to 5 minute pitch, and we'll have cash prizes and other cool stuff from sponsors. And so speaking of sponsors, I want to thank our sponsor this month, WinCode. So WinCode is the newest coding academy here in South Florida, and they've been gracious enough to sponsor us for the last few months, and without them there wouldn't be pizza and beer. So let's give WinCode a round of applause. Which one of you is coming up from? Both of, all right, so 2 of WinCode stars are coming up to.
Do we need to come on the stage?
Yep. It'd be preferable since the microphone's up here and it's not wireless. Unless you want me to interpret for you guys.
Try it.
All right, so, well, WinCode, introduce yourself and all that stuff.
Thank you, Brian. Really exciting for us to be here. My name is Yuha, and this is Ed. I'm one of the co-founders of WinCode, and Ed is our head instructor. My question to start out was going to be, how many of you guys have had an idea for an app? And I think I've seen everybody's hand go up already who had the answer to that, but let's do it one more time. How many of you guys have an idea for an app? Yes. Quite a few. How many of you guys would actually build it if you had the skill to do it yourself? Quite a few. How many have the skill to do it yourself right now? A few. Okay, so what we are is, WinCode is a 9-week intensive development bootcamp. So what we do is we actually teach the skills to create your own web application for people who might have no background in programming at all or a very limited background. What you do during the 9 weeks is a full-time course, so it's Monday to Friday, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. and beyond for a lot of our students, and you learn the skills necessary for a full-stack web application. So this is a web front end that you see like a Twitter or an Airbnb, a back end, and you're going to learn how all of that works, and you can tie it together to build a minimum viable product or a prototype. We have our first cohort going on right now, 14 students, and tomorrow night they present their creations at the lab. So we have our pitch day, which we would love all of you guys to attend if you can make it, and see what our students have created. We've had a lot of support from the community, including RefreshMiami, a lot of companies, and we really want to thank everybody. One of the really cool things we just found out is that Rocker Labs, which is a company based on Miami Beach, is actually going to give an internship to the top student that pays back their entire tuition on the spot tomorrow night. So it's a really cool opportunity for somebody to grow their idea or get a foot into the industry. To talk a little bit more about our program, I'm going to pass it over to Ed.
It doesn't go further.
All right, this is as far as I'm going to get to go. Hello.
Hello.
I'm Ed, the head instructor. It rhymes, so it's easy to remember. So the two types of people that come into our program are typically either people who are interested in getting into a career in software development. There's a lot of demand, so it's a really in-demand skill. And perhaps more applicable to you folks are people who are entrepreneurs who have an idea that they'd like to build an MVP for. You're going to see MVP over and over again tonight, it seems. So the idea is that when you have, as part of the discussion today, one of your options for building out your MVP would be to potentially pay some developer to build out your first product. Rather than do that, you can instead pay to go to a coding school and learn how to build your own MVP. And rather than pay a developer who's going to work for a few weeks or months and then go away, you will learn the skills to be working on this MVP and the next MVP and then the next MVP, and that one I promise is going to be the good one, in order to build the startup that you've always dreamed of and to become your own boss. So there's a lot of demand. The students, the first cohort is just coming to a close right now. We already have students who are getting interviews and potentially job offers and internships. We have the Rocker Labs Challenge. So there's a lot of activity and a lot of excitement going on. So I welcome you to come to the course, or at least come and stop by tomorrow and find out the types of things that you can do after 9 hardcore intensive weeks of programming goodness. There you go.
Thank you, Ed. That's awesome. So just so everybody knows, the next 9-week cohort begins on July 21st, and then our next one, which will be our third, is October 20th. So you can just apply on our website if you're interested. We do have a payment plan now that's going to make it easier for students to be able to attend, and we have a little info table outside. If you'd like to grab our contact information or chat with myself or Ed, we're also lucky to have one of our students, PK, is here in the front row. He's actually done what a lot of you guys might want to do, which is build an MVP of his idea, coming into the course with limited programming knowledge, and now it's up and running, and you can actually test it out. So come and see us if you'd like to learn more. Thank you very much, guys.
Did you want to play the video?
Yeah.
Welcome to WinCode.
A full-time intensive development boot camp, engineered to produce successful coders with business acumen.
WinCode is located in Miami's Wynwood Arts District, a creative place where you're surrounded by inspiration.
WinCode gives you the programming skills to create things and bring your ideas to life, as well as how to present, plan, and pitch your work to peers and investors. Whether you're looking to build and launch your own app,
Or explore a new career path by breaking into the rapidly growing tech industry,
WinCode is where you want to be.
the Miami tech scene is on the verge of great things. Are you?
Change your life. Learn the art of code.
So tonight,
You have to talk louder. Turn it on.
So tonight we have two great speakers who've been generous enough and flexible enough to put up with our schedule changed. And I want to apologize to everybody for not having but on Thursday, there was an emergency here, which I guess no one here would have wanted to be here because of this. There was a little bit of water all over the place. And so I also want to thank the Museum of Science here for hosting us. They've been super nice and gracious about hosting us the last few months and next month. So our next event, July 24th, will be here.
26th.
No, 24th. So July 24th will be here, and Pablo, who is somewhere around here, will be our host that night. Pablo, let's give Pablo a round of applause. She's going to be MC/playback. But anyway, so I want to introduce our first speaker, Ellie from Cumbia. She is a jet setter and sailor and all-around kick-ass person, and she's going to be teaching us everything we need to know about how to build an MVP. So Ellie, why don't you come on up?
Great. Thanks, everybody. So who here still needs to build an MVP? Who here hates their MVP? It should be everybody that has an MVP. Is this loud enough?
I can hear you.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
No?
Yeah.
Louder? Okay. So today's presentation is something we've given before at Cumbia. Cumbia is a design and development firm. We're global. We have offices in any city, thus the jet setting. But also we help founders and enterprises figure out what it is they want to build and do, and the consequences of that. If the right business processes are in place, if the budget makes sense, if it makes sense to fully build it out or validate it in early stage. So today's presentation and what I'll go through, we might spend more time on slides than others, but you can find this online. It's easily Googleable. You can search for MVP Cumbia, MVP Ellie, or even go on SlideShare/Cumbia, where we have lots of presentations that you can access. So in a beginner's course, or for everybody here, what an MVP is minimal viable product. Now what that means is the minimal amount of features that you need for it to be alive, to be a thing, to exist. So we're going to touch on that today, but I'm also going to add some information around minimal sellable product, which is slightly different. The difference is basically with minimal viable product, you have the basics to make it work, to get somebody to think or quote on it. With minimal sellable, it could clearly be a mock-up, but if you present it in the right way, you may even get it funded or a strategic investment, so without building. So in this deck, what we're talking about is collecting the maximum amount of information to get your minimal viable product. So for example, if you want to make an app that helps your dog find a play date, which this actually exists, there's actually a couple hundred apps that do this, but if you also wanted to make an app that helped your dog get a date, you would have to figure out what the minimal features would be, right? What location is your dog at? What location does your dog play at? How does your dog connect and communicate with other dog owners? These are things you have to think about with the MVP. So as silly as they sound, the logic of what you go through is the same for any type of thing that you do. We advocate early on to try to do MVP because we believe it gives you better scoping. So at WinCode, they're there, it seems like, to help you, build the first initial product, especially if you're non-technical. At Cumbia, we enjoy having very complex, amazing projects to work on. We launch a new mobile app every week or so with a new client. Could we make $10,000 or $100,000? Sure. But at Cumbia, we like to be challenged, and we have a whole team of people that can design and do things. Why I'm mentioning this is the better your MVP can be, the better technical talent you can get. When you're going to investors and you're going to pitch, well, if only we closed our seed round, then we could get this amazing CTO from this amazing company from a guy that won't return my emails. Basically, what you want to do is create an MVP that will inspire that person, that'll want them to fix bugs, and will want them to work on your app. So an MVP is not just to make money and to sell, it's also your job as the founder to make it as best as you can. Talking about money here really quickly, what does an MVP cost? So these are some costs, and these are already outdated, of what minimal viable products meant for these companies, and if we were to recreate them today. This is data from the Next Web, an article a few months ago. What we see at Cumbia is the average mobile app is around, I'd say, $50,000 to $80,000. But bear in mind that the people people coming to us and part of this presentation, they've already either built the code, built the UI, designed the UI, have it in Sketch, can be exported in hot glue, or anything else immediately. Did anybody catch any name I mentioned? Okay. All right, we'll go through that again. So, at Cumbia, we believe that it's important to go after a market, not users. So sometimes users can actually be the first false positive that you can ever have. Just because you're getting downloaded immediately does not mean that there'll be a reoccurring monthly active user. But what does get users is if it's a very valuable thing. Does anybody here use Genius Scan? I feel like I'm plugging every app on the planet, but I actually use them and I'm not paid by them. Okay, so Genius Scan, for instance, is an app where you can take a picture of something, it'll scan and photocopy, and will sync to Dropbox and email and other docs that you have. Genius Scan is an example of a minimal viable product. They created a way to take pictures, change the formatting of it, and have it go on to something else. They've been wildly successful besides this room. So, by the way, in a side note, I'm new to the Miami tech scene via, obviously, New York, where every other Jew comes from here in Florida. But I've been here about 2 months, so I'll pick up on the jokes. Feel free to hashtag Ellie has no idea what he's talking about. Anyway. Okay, so this is pretty basic knowledge we know, right? How many startups fail? Like all of them. Actually, I would argue 100% of startups fail. Some get acquired, some get jobs, and some move on to other things. But unless you IPO or you're really being disruptive, Ellie's non-Cumbia comment is 100% of startups fail. Napster. Okay, we can skip Napster. And MySpace. Niche. Okay, so, sorry. No, I'm not sorry. Okay, so what we believe in is also finding a problem and solving it. So this is the other thing to think about. If you can really think through the features and the steps that you're building in your minimal viable product, that alone tells you that you have something there. If you can create steps, if you can understand features, if you can know what to build. Really think through the whole UX as you go through it. Here's another thing urging you to go niche, urging you to think big, urging you to bootstrap. Okay, let's look at the piggy for a second. Back to WinCode, this can get really expensive. So most entrepreneurs are serial entrepreneurs, not very good at keeping day jobs. Your parents are asking you what you're doing with your life. You're constantly raising money, making pitch decks. You can make a PowerPoint about 8.2 seconds. And you've already figured out how to reuse your Muni passes and figure out other coupons to steal online. Okay, this is for you. So MVPs can add up, even if you're spending $1,000 or $2,000 each, or you're trying to build it yourself. Eventually, you need to call in an outside designer or additional help. What really thinking through your MVP does, and we actually have checklists, so feel free to tweet or email me, and I can send you MVP checklists to which you can go through and answer yourself, which is good because if you're passionate about your idea, you will not realize when it sucks. So, looking at this piggy bank, you have to really think through how good you can get at MVPs. Because realistically, each person in this room, if you're an entrepreneur, you will need to build at least 10 different MVPs before you find one good enough to fail in the next 9 months. I'm very positive. Recovering founder, you can even look it up, it's true. And you're not going to be able to pay yourself. So one angle is WinCode and learning how to code to help you get a good, solid product to bring on technical talent. Another way to do it would be to use Sketch or Hot Glue or Balsamic, which are other tools online that can help you sketch it yourself and make the wireframes that can export into other forms of code, but you're not going to be able to pay yourself. So the way you can go as a non-technical founder is you can become technical-ish and learn how to code what you need for the basic MVP, or you can focus on the product's UX and design and get really, really good at fundraising. Or begging for money, which is the same. So, and the reason why we say that is some of the best ideas couldn't get investment in the first couple years. So you have to be ready to be doing this for the long run. In this case, this is some harmony coming from the CEO of Cumbia, Jonathan Tur. So Cumbia, we're a 110-person company or so, completely bootstrapped. And when I say bootstrapped, I don't mean we had a sugar daddy who cut us a check every quarter and we didn't have to put it on our books bootstrapped. I mean, we literally had to bring every check in from customers to hire another person. and in 6.5 years built to 100 people. So when we urge companies or founders to come to us, we often will give you free materials, so anybody here free, email us, whatever, but we urge to also go debt-free. So don't use your credit card to pay for programmers, and don't use your credit card to, buy software. What you should really be focusing on is getting validation for your business idea. These are back this is basically Scrappy, that's what that means. This one, I don't know, we'll find out, okay. This for life, I know what this is about. Agile marketing. So has anybody here ever tried any tactics of faux advertisement or agile marketing? Nice. I'm so glad I moved to Miami. Okay, so faux advertisement is when you create an ad that's basically for a product that doesn't exist, like Cheeto printed Oreo cookies or something. And you create an ad and you promote it on, am I running out of time?
No.
Oh.
You're talking about smoke test.
Smoke test?
Yeah.
Smoke screen.
Oh, never heard that. Okay, so I guess it's the same thing.
Yeah.
Smoke screen, smoke test is you create an ad of something that doesn't exist. And then the other thing we have is agile marketing, where you take advertisement, whether it's email advertisement or advertisement in print, and you start tailoring it. So it's similar to smoke, but you hone in. So you have like one image they A/B test with like a family and a dog and and whatever the product is. And then you have another image that's like a race car and some like soccer player, like something different demographic, right? And then you see how well they perform, and by that you change the strategy in the marketing of the actual product. Sometimes you change the product itself. So in the case of a product that may be a household item, you may actually start tailoring it more for like sporting, which completely did not match that slide, but I'm just going to give you free information. Time frame. I would say anybody here, I would say realistically, to think through your MVP, you should be looking at dedicating 4 to 8 weeks. I know you can hack. I know you can make a little, app that can break on a test pilot situation. But to really validate a business idea, you need time, and you need to be able to talk to people other than friends and family to validate your idea. And some quick tips around that are to set up different survey monkeys or MailChimps and try to even email family and friends. If you keep the quiz to less than like 10 questions, generally speaking, you will get a high response rate. This is back to being agile. Don't wait. If you have an idea right now, just start jotting it down. If you have to try to get someone through the Startup Institute to work on it, you can also try to get interns or coordinators. I think the biggest thing for you is to think about your idea and immediately start thinking of people that can help you execute, because you don't want to wait. The biggest thing that happens in waiting is we have problems. Let's keep it here. But the biggest thing that happens when you're waiting to do stuff is you lose the passion, you lose the spark, you lose the idea of features, but also you lose your go-to-market. And go-to-market is crucial, especially when we have everybody agile and everybody working in different subsets. You can be looking at a go-to-market of any type of product, from idea into app store, can be done in less than 2 months. So if you have an idea and you really think it could be something, I highly recommend pursuing it. Because waiting, they say time is the enemy of all deals, and it can also be that way for product. So one of the things I like about software, my background's actually as a technical project manager in software design development. I've done big corporate projects for MasterCard, Macy's, healthcare insurance companies. At Cumbia, I get to touch on many different clients. But the cool part about working in a SaaS business model is that you don't have the hard costs and overhead. But if you can find a way to make your MVP meet that, you can get early validation without increasing your burn. So with the software model, what you're looking at is, there's several different ways, especially if it's a mobile app. You can have like in-ad placement, referral, revenue share, regeneration. But the main business models behind software as a service can be either subscription, so recurring monthly billing, or install, download. So if you can think about your MVP in one or two of those ways, even if it doesn't end up in there, it can be a really helpful framework. Also, you can take any business models of any of those companies and copy and paste them into a spreadsheet and put them into a slide deck for your investors when they ask how big the market is. So some benefits to going more on the software side is that you have the flexibility. You can change things, you can use mockups, you can use sketches, and you can also change your deck. How many people here are going to start a new MVP in the next week? Great. Okay, just trying to get a gauge of what we're doing. And what space?
Menus, restaurant menus.
Menus, restaurant menus. I think you all heard that noise. Okay, what about back here? Hi. There's two other hands.
It's restaurant as well.
Really? Okay. So I guess Miami only likes restaurant apps. I guess I'll have to go back home and start reading up.
We have a lot of them.
We're like the open table of open table. Anyway. Well, that's what I have for now. Feel free to tweet at me at MeCashette, or you can email me, ellie@cumbia.com. My point today was to really get you thinking about validating your business idea, validating your model, but also understanding the cheap and easy tricks. And I'm here and I'm in the community, so do not hesitate in tapping my knowledge. And good luck with your MVPs.
Thank you. Go back. Back. There you go. This is exactly how it goes.
So next up, I want to welcome Carlos Taborda from Webinode.
Hello, everybody. First of all, thank you for the good turnout, especially after having to reschedule from Thursday. And I think I'm gonna be doing the same thing, making you guys raise your hands for a second. So who sitting here is either at an idea stage, you're figuring out what to build, or you are looking, you're already building, you already have an idea. Who has an idea and who's looking for an idea? It's 2 questions. All right. So skip that one. So who's already creating their idea? Who's building it in the process of it? Now, who's profitable with their ideas? That's me, right? Okay, but I'm pretty sure that a lot of you guys are aware of these methodologies, the methodologies taught in these books, from Lean Startup, all these things, pretty common. But what happens is there's always more people who have a bunch of ideas, and that's a bunch of, you'll have ideas basically, and there's the people down there who actually put those lessons into practice. And you're not the only ones, let me tell you. I've done that myself, and that's why I'm here. I want to share my story of how I killed one of my startups, and it cost me over $100,000 worth of my own money. And we know it's boring. Again, 8 out of 10 people skip all that. For some reason, tell me you haven't done this, I've done it. Usually your first step is getting a logo, and a business card, and a domain, right? It's happened to me. And the second step is you go out and find a developer. Like, let me call up some development company and see how much this is going to be, right? So, alright, so let me introduce myself for a second so you know who the hell is talking to you guys. My name is Carlos Taborda. I run 2 companies. One of them is called GST Labs. We're another software company here in Miami. We do web and mobile apps. And Webinode, which is our main company, it's a managed Ruby on Rails hosting platform. And recently it started doing blogging and podcasting for some reason through Launch Solid. So I'm actually today representing myself through Launch Solid. But I want to tell you guys a story of how, again, I had started Webinode first, and then we had this other idea. And don't get me wrong, I've been doing this for about 10 years for startups, Fortune 500, as an employee in previous jobs in the past. So, has anybody done this, heard of this in the past? Casa de Herrero, Cuchillo de Palo, right? For those of you who speak Spanish. Right? And in English, it's the shoemaker's son always goes barefoot. And pretty common, right? So the story starts in 2010. We had gotten to our first $1 million of yearly revenue with Webinar. We were at a point of my life where I thought, this is it. I've made it. This is my unicorn. More than I had ever hoped for. It's starting from zero, 100% bootstrap company. I decided that I wanted to start this new thing, this revolutionary thing. I had done it once. I could do it again. And we called it Stackful. And you can tell by the name that something went wrong. But I laugh at this, but we applied to Y Combinator, we were interviewed, we went to Techstars, we were interviewed, of course, because of the name, they rejected us. Now, here's the first lesson, and out of 3 lessons of how I killed this startup. The first one is, I decided to go and build this thing in stealth mode. Stealth mode well, I'm sure you guys know what stealth mode is, right? It's like when you start working on your idea without telling anybody. So we thought we were so revolutionary, so disruptive, that's a new catchy word in town. So revolutionary that we didn't want anybody to know about what we were building. Somebody was gonna catch up what we were doing and come into the market first, etc. I tell you, if my mom had asked me about this thing, I would have given her an NDA. We were so stupid about it that it would have gone into that problem. So here's the thing: there's 2 schools of thought about this thing. So people who say do work in stealth because of these 3 things. One of them is people will steal your ideas. And my answer to that is, if your idea is any good, 2 things can happen. Somebody's already working on it. For sure, somebody's already working on it, so you don't need to be scared of that. And 2, if it's good and it really hits the market, what do you think? Other people who have a lot more money and a lot more deeper pockets than you guys, they're gonna come at you. I mean, we've heard there's clones of everything, right? Now, that is what we need to be worrying about, is how we're gonna outplay those people that are gonna come after us. And that's point number 2. The idea is what separates you from the competition. If that's the case, then you're screwed, because again, you need to, that's when people say you need to execute, right? You've heard all this stuff. It's not the idea, it's execution. And that's where it comes in. Because, for example, we had big competition. You guys heard of Heroku, Linode, big companies, way bigger than ours. And we were able to stay in the market and be happily profitable because we did things to separate ourselves from them. But of course, they were going to come out at us if we had stayed in the same market. Now, and then number 3, you want to be first. We already know what happened to MySpace and the likes. Being first does not guarantee that you're going to be a success. So what I learned that by going through this stealth mode is, I said, I can't do this in the future. Number 1 reason, it prevents you from building pre-launch buzz. So pre-launch buzz means as you're building your app, as you're finding partners, as you're talking to people that can help you validate your idea at a high level, then you can't build any of that. You can't go to the blogs and, hey, I want you to help me get the word on this thing that I'm building, generate pre-launch buzz. And then it also limits your feedback opportunities, unsolicited feedback, which is very important when you're building something and you think you have the right idea, but it turns out that sometimes we don't have the right idea, is when unsolicited feedback is really important. And 3rd, but probably the most important, is we did 0 validation. And you can't run a business without validating, without understanding what problem it is you're solving and for whom. And this is the funny part, is this is what happened to us this is all our failures. But one of them was that, of course, we did not solve a problem, right? And you cannot solve a problem, you can't find the problem. And you cannot find the problem if you don't get insights that tell you what problems exist. So usually what and this happens again to all of us, is we think, I have this idea. I have this idea of, I'm going to build this great product. But the way that this should be is finding the problem within people. finding, if you're in the real estate market, you need to know that market so well that you understand their pains and their problems. So that's where the ideas come out, is understanding the insights, the problems, and building a solution for it. And of course, this is what happens to Stackpool. It burned, right? And it was because we didn't find a burning pain, which takes me to lesson number 2. And for us, it's easy to solve. I know that it's easy to solve problems nobody has. It's easy to say I have this idea, but nobody wants it, right? While it's really hard to find a problem that is really a burning problem, but sometimes we go to the easiest option, which is just building something that's nice to have, like I mentioned earlier, the match thing for dogs, for example. That's been done enough times, and that's just a nice to have. Now, if you solve a real burning pain, you're more likely to succeed. In reality, it's because to convince people that they have a problem that you can solve, you have to spend a lot more money than if you're solving a real pain that they already understand that they have. See what I'm saying? Like, people know they have problem A, and you have a solution that fits that problem. While other people, you need to convince them they have that problem. So it takes a lot more marketing, a lot more money to convince those people, and then show them what you have to offer. Let me give you a good example about this. Imagine you're in the Amazon jungle, and you're told that you need to be there for 3 months.
GPS.
And the only thing they don't tell you is these guys. Tiny mosquitoes the size of my fists. Here's what happens. You go there and you see these things, and all of a sudden you have 2 options. You have this thing, it'll make you smell wonderful, and it's a spray. You spray it on and you smell good. But again, remember the mosquitoes, right? And option B is this thing, right? Self-explanatory. That solves your burning pain. Which option would you get? Option A or option B? So that is exactly the way that you should be thinking of the products that you're creating. Because if you're solving a real problem, you're solving a burning pain for them, whether it's through tech, whether it's through a physical product, whatever it is, it can relate in the same way. With Stackful, we did the exact opposite. We didn't solve any major pains. It was just a nice to have, and we could not build a real business around it. Which takes me to my point number 3. And business is equally important as technology. And I say that with the WinCode guys here, and I say that with everybody like myself. We do technology. But a lot of you guys are thinking only technology, that technology is my savior. While in reality it's business. Business is the core thing you need to be thinking about. Technology is something that is trivial. It comes afterwards, after you're validated, after you've done all the work that you need to do ahead. If not, it's just a hackathon. You get a bunch of guys working on this cool idea you have. It's just a hackathon. So don't neglect that. And as you know, as this guy said, a cool product makes a business not. You can see that later. So, as I stand before you guys, this is, I guess my first presentation here with Refresh. I ask you to pick a team. Will you pick a team that just builds nice to haves and is playing the lottery to see to win the jackpot, trying to be the next Instagram, to be the next WhatsApp, whatever it is? Or will you be part of my team? I work with people and I want to know more of local people who are solving real businesses, who are creating real businesses, profitable businesses, in the millions of dollars. Not necessarily just, you don't need to be thinking of just a unicorn that's making, selling it to Facebook. That's not the goal. The goal is to build a real business. And the other team is this one, the one that solves a real problem and builds a profitable business around it. And don't laze over this. I know you've heard of these things before. I know you've heard of, okay, take look at the lean startup, all these things, you've heard of them. But the longer you wait, the least likely you're to succeed. Like Ellie said a second ago, one of your enemies is time. So you don't have that much time. So don't wait. Take action today. And go back, read the books, take the advice that is taught here, Refresh, in all the events that happen here, and be one of those, take the advice that go down the funnel. The people who actually apply all that knowledge. And what was it? That's it, guys. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
We got a few questions. Go through the lean startup like early, like just synopsis, like a boilerplate of lean startup for those who don't know, because we went and assumed that people know what lean startup is.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good point. So you're saying that we assume what lean startup is, and so by show of hands, who here has not read the book? So the majority has read it. So the lean startup concept. What was that?
I just assumed. I guess I was wrong.
No,
Keep going.
Yeah, the lean startup concept is where so there's something to be said about that, the whole build, measure, and learn. And that is a key component. You're building the minimum, at the minimum possible level that you can actually build. Sometimes people ask me, Carlos, what is an MVP? And we confuse an MVP with it being a piece of software that you hire somebody to create, or that you create yourself. They confuse that with the MVP, when an MVP could just be something in paper. That could be an MVP. Because it's not about the product in MVP, it's not about the minimum viable product, it's about the minimum viable, something that is viable, something that you can use to validate your idea. So that is one of the key concepts of the Lean Startup books. I would urge you to read, what's the other one called? I would say customer development is pretty interesting, because the Entrepreneur's Guide to Customer Development will get you to understand how to find that your ideas are just like a result of understanding somebody's problem, their problems, and the insights that you get from them is what actually would result in your ideas. But I didn't prep for more. So any questions?
Let's ask questions.
Anybody have any questions? Dude in blue shirt.
Yes. Good news, sir.
Yeah. Speak up. Yeah.
It's very vague, the definition of a problem. Like, you're saying yes, you need to understand or you need to solve the problem, but that can mean so many different things for you, me, or him.
Right.
How you're really solving the problem.
Well, the way, if we want to take it into steps to try to answer that question. So, let's say you have an idea. Let's say you're thinking of this solution for real estate agents, something that we can all relate to. We know what they do, we know that what the type of work they do, right? But unless you're a real estate agent, unless you know this inside out, you don't understand their problems. For example, one of their problems could be that they take too many papers on their cars when they're taking you to see houses. That could be a real pain for them. So would they pay money to have that pain solved? That is a problem. That is how you find the problem. That's their pain. Now, if you build an app that tells them the quicker routes to see houses, that's a nice to have because they could just use Google Maps or their regular GPS. So there's a variation for each person, for what a pain is to you, what a pain is to everybody, to someone else. We need to find what is a burning pain to them in their business that we can try to solve, versus doing the next doggy sharing picture app. See what I mean?
So, am I right assuming then in order to know you're solving a problem, you need to understand deeply the problem?
You need to understand the people well. You need to, there's two schools of thoughts in this thing, that you create something and hope for people to come. I'd rather get to know the possible people. Let's say I choose an audience, I target somebody, and from their understanding of how they do things, I need to get insights. So let's say, what do you do, for example? Give me an example.
Home automation.
Home automation, okay. So let's say I were to build software for home automation. And I need to know in detail exactly how you operate, if I were to choose your audience, you as an audience. And from the way that you operate and the things where you spend money, the things that you do and the pains that you have, I identify that, okay, he has these issues. I'm gonna solve this problem because it costs him this much money per year. So paying me is gonna be an investment for him that is gonna allow him to make more money. I consider that to be a solution to a burning pain. And a burning pain is by definition when somebody is willing to pay for it, not when it's just a nice app on their iPhone. Make sense?
Yes, thanks.
What tools would you use for mock-up, wireframe? What would you recommend? I know, but have them repeat it.
Sure. So some tools that we can use to create some wireframes. Wireframes are a blueprint to a building, for example. So if you want to create some of your own wireframes, I would use a tool called Balsamiq. That's my preference. There's a few other ones, but some can really get complex. I would just stick with Balsamiq. It's kind of the basic one.
There's a question in the middle of the girl in the white shirt.
Yeah, I have a question. Usually these kind of things are applied to a software or something that is not quite tangible. So my question would be a little bit abstract perhaps. How can you relate this, or what can you say about applying this concept to something that is tangible, like a product that you will sell, like a cup of water or something like that? What would you do?
Well, the same story. I would try to. You can relate this to pretty much everything. That's why I gave you the example of the repellent, because you can find a problem. You can find people's problems and try to solve it. And I have a friend who made this thing called Dream Water. Have you guys heard of it? Right? So he solved the problem. He solved a problem that sometimes we'll have. I have, and I can't sleep sometimes, and that's a solution to my problem.
What is it?
Dream water.
Dream Water. So you see what I'm saying? You could apply it to whether they're physical or digital products. This could be applied to educational products. I have other friends who make a living selling self-published books. And they go out and find, one of them, my friends, is called Brennan Dunn. I don't know if anybody here knows him. He creates books and education for freelancers and consultants. And he goes and says to you, what if you run out of billable hours? And he teaches you how to get more customers and that sort of thing. And he does it by education, and he says, he basically pinpoints that for you it's more important to get more customers. So he says, this is how I used to get customers with my consultancy. So again, it could be applied to anything. But the good thing is, if you find, instead of building from your own idea, let's say you have an idea right now, instead of starting from your own, if you start from them, from your audience's needs, then you can actually create something for them instead of hoping that, I compare it to pasta sticking in a wall. Like if you create something, oh, let me see if it sticks. It's really expensive to do that. Right?
I have a question. Do you have any suggestions for the specific tactics when you try to find out the real problems for the customers? Because I think sometimes how you frame or MVP or how you frame the questions really affects how they, like how you look at your MVP, how they answer the questions. Sometimes
Yes.
you get like false answers or they kind of
Yeah, the way that I do customer interviews, that's what you're asking about, is more on not asking them questions, but is having them tell you stories of how they operate. Again, if it's an architect, I want to know what his day-to-day looks like without me asking for, me trying to hint them to give me an answer. I want them to tell me, so for example, how do you start a new project? How many people are involved to create a new project for a property that you guys have? So he'll go and say, so we opened this software, and then we do this, we save the file here, we like all to those steps. And somewhere in there he's going to say, well, but you know what, it's a mission to do that. That takes me so much time, then I have so many versions of the AutoCAD file, how do I, and that, if you hone in on that, you could find a solution. You could find actually a problem that you could make a solution for. Make sense? So it's not about asking them a question, it's about letting them give you the insights. And from those insights, you find their problems. And one thing is, don't pitch your idea to them. Don't. It's better to not show your idea at all. Go ahead.
from a subscription-based software as a service perspective, right? Let's say you think you found a problem where you have a niche market. How do you determine whether, and you look at that market, you're thinking about it, but you've determined and found people are already operating that market. And hypothetically speaking, there are 100,000 potential subscribers in the country, for example. How do you go about determining whether there's enough market left for you?
Good question. Well, it's really hard. I mean, it's kind of an art and a science to tell the real size of the market. But the way I would do it is, and it's going to sound really crazy, but it's creating content. When you start creating content and start educating a particular audience that you think you can educate, and you start getting visits from those people. Let's say, I don't know your type of product, but let's say you're doing a product. I want to go back to the real estate just because that's something we all know we're talking about. So let's say you're educating people on, you're creating a software for real estate agents. So if you start educating real estate people about certain topics that make sense to apply to your product, then that's content marketing. You start seeing how many visitors are reading that content, and let's say you get 100,000 visitors that are interested in that content. How can you relate to them and sell what you have to sell? So it's kind of a hard answer. The real answer there is it depends. But content marketing would be an easy way, and it just takes time to build up that audience and that content. But if you validate that you have enough people that want to read what you can write about that particular segment, then it's highly likely that you can sell them a product.
Another approach for that, if it's a technology company, if it's software based, there's a website called builtwith.com, and builtwith.com will let you buy data sets of software that people are using on their websites. So if it's a software that you embed on your website that does chat communication, you can do a search for that, see what kind of market penetration they have, and then determine the market size based on the total data set of that industry that you're searching for. So like I can do a search for e-commerce sites that sell shoes and then determine how many of those use chat clients. And then from there, based on a larger view of the industry, and determine how much is left of that. But that's more of it's more specific for data companies, online or digital companies. If it's an app, you can determine downloads because there are services that rate and estimate number of downloads for certain apps. And then you can compare that to the estimated market size of your industry. And then the other thing is, even if the industry does have existing products on there, a lot of times, especially for niche products because the market size is small, there are legacy applications that have been there for years. And so if you see that the technology has stagnated, there's an opportunity for a disruption. Try to see what you can do to develop the user experience, because a lot of times applications that are legacy or been there for a while have a lot of opportunity, a lot of chances to be disrupted by just changing the user experience. You don't have to reinvent the wheel, you just have to make it easier. But it's still, content generation is a valid technique. I've done it before, it works really well. Generating a user base of people who trust your advice, it's a great technique. It takes some time to cultivate, but if it's a technology company, there's a couple of other routes you can go.
What was the name of the website?
Builtwith.com. Yeah, builtwith.com. They'll sell you data sets for $500, but you'll get 200,000 websites. And if you have a data scientist or somebody who's good with Excel, you would be able to sort of analyze that data set. It's honestly not that hard.
There's another method to figure out sort of the question that he was asking, which is you're trying to figure out the total addressable market and then see what's remaining. What you could do is reverse engineer using Google AdWords and keyword search volume tools and see what the bid prices are for advertising against certain keywords which your competitors are using, and then figure out from there what their potential customer acquisition costs are, and figure out what is it that they're willing to spend to acquire this slice of the customer base based on keyword volumes, click volumes, and search volumes and all that. And that would be one way to sort of reverse engineer the available market and what they're willing to spend to capture their market.
And you're thinking that the customer acquisition cost is higher and higher then that's a more and more mature market?
It all
Yeah,
depends.
absolutely.
It depends on what the price points are in your
Yeah,
market.
I mean, if it's a high customer acquisition cost, that means there's a lot of competition out there,
Right.
which means you might have to look at different ways of making yourself stand out. Because,
I mean,
it also depends on the user life cycle. So if you're going to have a product that has a life cycle of a user of a year, and the acquisition costs are high, then your differentiating factor has to be that. Yeah, there's a lot of variables. Pricing could be one of them. It could be usability. It could be a bunch of things. But understanding the industry, like he's mentioned a dozen times, and it sounds trivial and it sounds like common sense. Most people assume they know the market. They really don't. Most people assume they have a product or a problem that they're solving. They really don't. And it really just comes down to knowing the tools. And Built With, Google, search. We can talk about this for days. Like, it can get really deep. And the conversation he's given are awesome points to kind of dive in deeper. Nothing we do here can go too deep because it's just a matter of time. But these things that we've learned and his experience and what he's done is perfect.
One thing I would do is, if you're already trying to get into existing markets, understand what people hire those other products for. So that's a concept called jobs to be done. So if you're in that, I would highly recommend you studying jobs to be done. It's, for example, somebody hires a glass of water to do a certain job versus somebody who hires a cup of coffee to do a different job. So if you understand really tightly why people are choosing product A and what they're hiring that product for, then it's easier to compete. When you understand it 100%, when you talk to those people and see what pain, going back to the pain, what pain that product is solving for them. Any other questions?
So let's assume you have an FBA page, and let's assume it's an e-commerce site, right? So the final product is a website. How do you find the perfect, well, I don't know if anything's perfect, but the software application that you would use, the best use, to build that product, to make it as efficient as possible? In other words, you meet with development shops, and one guy works in .NET, another guy uses Ruby on Rails, another guy says Magento, whatever. How do you source that and weed it out to say, you know what, this is the best thing for me, regardless of the development shop and that's fine?
Right, that is a tricky question because you're not creating a custom product type of thing, and you're creating a store type of product. So what you're trying to validate, honestly, is not the technology behind it, is to make sure that there's enough search and enough volume of possible people looking for those products online. And honestly, the technology becomes a triviality. I would recommend that honestly, the best technology you can pick, it's the one that the people you trust use. So if the people that you trust use Rails, go with Rails. If the people you trust are Magento guys, Magento is one of the strongest e-commerce platform, go with that. If they're WordPress and they install other WordPress e-commerce plugins, go with that. But I wouldn't spend so much time trying to validate the technology. Validate that the product that you're trying to sell has enough of a volume to sell online. And maybe of course some people are selling shoes or t-shirts, and we all know that sells online. Now the question becomes, what channels do you use in order to reach your audience? So that's kind of what I would try to validate is those things for e-commerce. Any other questions?
Oh, one in the back.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, all time long we've been talking about problems and problems creating a most viable product. But we have seen like entertainment creating even better products, and we have seen like basic necessities that create even better products than a problem. Problem takes a smaller set of the business compared to necessity, as well as entertainment also takes a bigger picture in the market out there. So what's your opinion on like entertainment related products and other domain related products?
I agree. There's something to be said about that, about games and those types of apps. I personally don't have much experience with those types of apps, but I know that they take a lot more money and a lot more backing to get people to play with those products. It's not always the case, but unless you understand the trends, I guess it's understanding what people want. Maybe that's how you can word it with that type of product. Understanding what they want and how you can create what they want. versus creating what you think these people want. So I would say is understanding trends, going to Google Trends, understanding what's hot, what type of things are hot, understanding the market again, and then creating for that want, for that desire, versus you coming up with your own ideas and hoping that they'll stick.
Understanding trends creates a stereotype product.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear that.
Understanding trend can create a stereotype product, but product comes from innovativeness at times and from the creativity and from something very new. Like, it's not about like always like existing problems and the existing trends. It's always about something new that can come out. From
Right.
Yeah.
They exist. There's big companies that exist that are the unicorns that I'm talking about, that are one in a million. So if we want to play that lottery, we can. But it's really unlikely that we'll be the next Facebook or the next Instagram. It's really unlikely. I mean, sadly, but it's the truth. So there's a higher likeliness of making a real profitable business if you find a problem versus just going with, the hopes and dreams of making something that people will want. If that makes any sense. I mean, that's my opinion, at least. I know that's full of thought.
I just wanted to, Parker, I wanted to answer that question in a way because in terms of the way you've answered your question, games solve the problem of boredom. And the problem with solving the problem of boredom is that people get bored with it. Then it becomes very difficult to continually come up with new stuff.
Thank you.
Like, you know what I mean? So you're constantly playing the game. I have a friend in England that works for King Games. And as you know, they came up with Candy Crush. And they're like, wow, this is amazing. All we have to do is come up with these stupid games and people are going to keep buying them. So they opened up 10 offices all around the world. They got funding for a ridiculous amount of money. And they're still trying to replicate Candy Crush because people are bored of it.
Yeah, so there you go. It's the jobs to be done thing I said in the beginning. A little bit ago is people would buy a game or would hire a game to do a job. Same thing with all different type of. For example, you hire some of these TV services to do a job, not just because you're so revolutionary that you can come up with these ideas. You're fulfilling a need. So it's understanding that need. Uber and these big companies solve the need. They solve the need for, but originally, people in the West Coast who were traveling to different conferences as a way for them to start going to places, and then it became a mainstream thing. It started. The first thing was in South by Southwest. They said, we'll offer all you geeks at South by Southwest free rides. And they solved the problem for them, people that didn't want to deal with the taxis. That was a burning problem, and you do pay a premium for using Uber than a regular taxi, and you're paying extra for that solution to that paying.
I think what we're gonna do is close up and then.
Yeah.
And we're not kicking anyone out though.
No, there's plenty of time to drink more beer and all that stuff.
Talk.
All right, guys, thank you so much.